what am I supposed to think as a black person sitting in this country right now? Does he think I am a monkey? Does his supporters think I'm a monkey? It's like, there is something about the deleting, but it is like, are we comfortable with a person that thinks like that would even do that to be in an office in the White House?
One post and the backlash begins. Donald Trump's latest Truth Social post has sparked major reactions, and a panel on Abby Phillip's show, including Ashley Allison and Joe Belli, is breaking down what it really means. If you believe in accountability and democracy, subscribe and join the conversation.
Together.
Is one of the most shocking posts that Donald Trump has ever shared also one of the least surprising? In a late-night posting storm, which has become more and more common, the President of the United States shared a racist video depicting Barack and Michelle Obama as apes. The outrage came quickly, even from many Republicans who called it vile and disgusting. But in their first response, the White House defended it as just an internet joke and accused everyone of fake outrage. Then, a few hours later, amid all of the backlash, they blamed a staffer and removed the post. So what is perplexing about all of this is how shocked Republicans claim to be by this. Trump has a long history of racist posts, comments, and actions, and yet they were all dismissed or ignored by those same people. And it's done nothing to change the level of support instead that he receives from these very Republicans. Tim Scott said, "This is the most racist post I've ever seen come out of this administration." And as someone pointed out on social media, what was the second most racist post he'd ever seen come out of this administration? Since when is that the bar?
Yeah. I mean, when I saw this today, it's the dual feelings that you identify, both shocked and not shocked at all, because this is someone who, this is not only a racist post, but a president who is engaged in racist policies, who has encouraged racist rhetoric from his supporters, who came to office on behind a racist conspiracy about Barack Obama. So this is all within his kind of political history. I guess I would also say that when you think about the Tim Scotts or some of the black conservatives, I know Byron Donalds was on the phone with the White House today. I have it feels to me as if I've never seen someone sign up or give up some of their values for Donald Trump and they don't get embarrassed in the end, And so I think it's inevitable when you kind of cede some of yourself and your values to him. He ensures embarrassment.
And that's actually part of the political strategy.
And I think that how much folks will take is a question he will always get to.
And where's the staffer, by the way, who did this? Has this person been frog marched out of the White House yet? Or did a staffer actually do this? I mean, these are the kinds of, there used to be accountability.
Dare I say, Charlie, no one believes that a staffer did
I know.
this, okay? It's 10, 11 p.m. at night. The president is in the residence and he is on social media. Let's not, I think it is so silly that we have to give credence to these very obvious lies that come out of the White House sometimes on this stuff.
I agree. I agree. But just, if it were really a staffer, they would have been fired. And we would know who they are.
Would they? I mean,
in any functional environment, any other
in a functional environment, but we're not there. We're not there. I think a couple of things. One, I saw it, I expected it, I'm not surprised, but I have the ability to do two things at once, and that is acknowledge how unacceptable it is, but also ask the question of what else happened that you were trying to cover up by doing this. So you arrest Don Lemon and then you go to Fulton County and try and raid the voter rolls in a county that you are concerned. You release the Epstein files and you go to Fulton County. There is a distraction tactic that this administration does, and we cannot be distracted by this. We also should not be surprised by it, but we also shouldn't be silenced by it, because there are many times I come on these shows and I say, when there's a group chat and they're saying racist things like the N-word, and JD Vance doesn't stop it at the gate and says, make some excuse. I'm being too sensitive. When it's the eating the cats and dogs, it's just too much. It's just too much. Those are warning signs of people who have behavior like this. And then when it comes out, it is like defend, then delete, pretend like it didn't have it, and make a pivot. We can't be surprised. We can't be silenced, but we can't also be distracted.
Can I play this? This is a C-SPAN caller who is a 3-time Trump voter and called in to say this about how he feels about the president right now.
Voted for the president, supported him, but I really want to apologize. I mean, I'm looking at this awful picture of the Obamas. What an embarrassment to our country. All this man does is tell lies. He is not worthy of the presidency. He takes bribes blatantly, and now he's being a racist blatantly. He's pathetic as a president, and I just want to apologize to everybody in the country for supporting this rotten man.
I know it's going to be easy for a lot of conservatives to dismiss that, but if you really look, as we've been talking about the polls and what they say about what independent and swing voters are thinking, there are a lot of people like that who are in that place right now. There was a poll this week that talked about, does Trump share your values? Does he have basically the ethics to be president? In the 60s, say he does not. That's a problem.
Let's start with the response, right? So this is obviously a case where the second response should have been the first response, if that's what the truth was. I mean, that said, the fact that they had a first response that perhaps wasn't entirely true is problematic in and of itself. I don't think you're going to find, and you haven't seen any Republicans, any conservatives come out, and really defend this, nor should they. The idea, the defense that this was part of the minute you start having to
stitch together all the explanations,
right? There's a credible screen grab of that by the president's Twitter handle, a truth handle, and it shouldn't have happened. So they should take responsibility. They should apologize and then seek to move on, not sort of deflect and try to hope it goes away.
But what are a lot of people supposed to feel about
One moment in that discussion really stood out. Even Joe Belli, who is usually one of the more reliable defenders of Donald Trump on Abby Phillip's show, didn't try the usual political gymnastics this time. He didn't pivot to the familiar, what about the other side? He didn't try to spin the conversation toward Democrats. Instead, he simply said what most people watching were already thinking. There's no real excuse for it. And that moment matters. Because if you've watched these kinds of panels before, you know the script. When a controversy erupts, the first instinct in partisan politics is almost always deflection. Change the subject, shift the blame, turn the conversation into a comparison. But here, even someone who often defends Trump seemed to recognize that the situation had crossed into territory that's hard to explain away. But Ashley Allison took the conversation in an even more important direction. She wasn't just reacting to the moment. She was pointing to the pattern behind it. And that's where the real story begins. Because if you step back for a second, you realize something unusual about the modern political environment. The news cycle keeps focusing on one shocking moment at a time, one headline, one post, one controversy. And each time it happens, the country reacts with outrage, debate, and endless commentary. But then something else happens. Another controversy appears. And the previous one disappears from the conversation almost overnight. Ashley Allison's point is that with Donald Trump, it's never just one incident. It's a constant stream of them. One day, it's a conspiracy theory. Another day, it's inflammatory rhetoric. Another day, it's a social media post that sparks national outrage. And when everything becomes shocking, something strange happens in politics. The shock starts to lose its power. That's not just a media problem. It's a structural problem for democracy. Because historically, American politics worked very differently. Think back for a moment. In the 1980s, Gary Hart was widely expected to become the Democratic nominee for president. One scandal, completely ended his campaign. His political future collapsed almost overnight. Or look at Howard Dean in 2004. One loud, awkward moment on stage, the famous Dean scream, was replayed on television again and again. That single viral moment helped derail his entire presidential bid. Even smaller public mistakes could shape a political career. When Vice President Dan Quayle misspelled the word potato, it became a national punchline and followed him for years. In other words, there used to be a clear expectation that leaders would be judged by a certain standard of seriousness and discipline. But now the environment looks very different. Controversies come fast and blur together. Ashley Allison asks, what should we expect from presidential behavior? The presidency isn't social media. It's about real decisions that affect millions of lives. Americans want a leader who treats the job with seriousness and responsibility, not constant distraction.
Yeah.
I would have a real conversation about this, because what that tells me is that the person who made history held the job that he currently has, the highest office in the land. He sees them as monkeys. And we know historically that people have looked as black people as less than human, that they were 3/5 of a person and they didn't deserve the right to vote. And so if that is the place where the again, and Make America Great Again goes back to, what am I supposed to think as a black person sitting in this country right now? Does he think I am a monkey? Does his supporters think I'm a monkey? It's there is something about the deleting, but it is are we comfortable with a person that thinks like that that would even do that to be in an office in the White House.
I always thought this was the heart of birtherism, that to denigrate Barack Obama, to denigrate someone who achieves the highest office in the land, isn't just about the individual action of those individual men. It is about the signal that it sends to a community largely that your achievements, your accomplishments does not overwhelm that perception. And so I think that message is received by a lot of people. And I frankly think that the White House's initial response is in line with what they've done about Minneapolis, they've done about a lot of other things. They're increasingly telling the public to not believe their eyes. And honestly, that ain't work out for Biden, and that's not gonna work out for Donald Trump either. Like, their credibility loss, I think, has been legitimate. And I think that they cannot keep sending people out here with excuses that even their supporters know are lies.
Well, that gentleman who just spoke, he represents what I call the double haters. This is a guy who probably voted for Donald Trump in spite of his conduct. Didn't like him, but he disliked Kamala more, so he voted for Trump. There are a lot of people like that out there, and frankly, these racist comments and all these other crazy things happen in Minnesota and Epstein and elsewhere. All these people, who had doubts about Trump, have even more, and many of them are either not going to show up or they're not going to vote Republican in the midterm. So this is an enormous problem for Republicans. So all the things you pointed out, Ashley, are true, but I do think it is having a real impact on the body politique.
All right. Thank you, guys. Next for us,
Here's the full picture, and it's far bigger than a single viral post can show. This controversy, like so many before it, will be forgotten in a day or two, and Donald Trump will already be on to the next shocking headline. The cycle is relentless, but the real concern isn't just the posts themselves. It's the system that allows them to dominate attention while avoiding meaningful consequences. The administration shows no willingness to learn, no plan to curb these social media antics, and no sense of accountability for the decisions that truly affect Americans' lives. The parallels are striking. Think back to Trump's father in his later years, a setup where he could feel productive without actually managing anything. Today, it often feels like Stephen Miller and others are running the country, while Trump focuses on personal projects, crypto schemes, profit-driven ventures, and endless social media theatrics. Meanwhile, serious governance, immigration policy, national security, economic stability, public health takes a back seat, and millions of Americans live with the consequences. It raises an urgent fundamental question. Can the country ever return to boring, disciplined, responsible leadership? Leadership defined by intelligence, focus, and accountability, rather than constant trolling, viral chaos, and distraction. Right now, the political climate makes that seem nearly impossible. Many Republican figures, from J.D. Vance to others, have built careers on provocation, spectacle, and attention-grabbing antics, and there's little incentive for them to change. Even in this rare moment on Abby Phillip's show, where voices like Joe Belli and Ashley Allison set aside partisan reflexes to call out plainly unacceptable behavior, the pattern is undeniable. Over a decade, the same cycle repeats: outrage, distraction, spectacle, and little accountability. The standards for presidential behavior have eroded, and the consequences extend far beyond any single post, tweet, or viral moment. Democracy depends on accountability, competence, and integrity. The presidency is not a platform for personal amusement, nor is it a stage for trolling, chaos, or self-interest. Americans deserve leaders who are thoughtful, capable, and committed to the serious work of governing, not ones obsessed with personal gain, viral attention, or constant disruption. If we truly care about the future of this country, it's time to demand that serious, responsible leadership returns to the Oval Office, a president who prioritizes policy, governance, and the well-being of the nation over spectacle, distraction, and self-interest. Because democracy cannot survive on chaos or entertainment. It thrives on discipline, responsibility, integrity, and courage.